For a variety of reasons, it is likely that if China decides on launching an invasion of Taiwan, it will take place sometime in the next 6 years prior to 2030, with the most dangerous and likely years being sometime between 2027 and 2030, by which time the war in Ukraine could potentially be largely concluded one way or the other, but potentially with a Russian victory of some type. If China ends up launching its invasion between these years, it is highly likely that the United States will directly intervene against China in support of Taiwan, and the biggest war of the 21st century between the two global superpowers will begin. With China's enormous armed forces bearing down on Taiwan, the US military will want to utilize all of its regional bases in East Asia to support Taiwan, including all of its military facilities and infrastructure located across South Korea, especially its Air Force bases located at Osan and Kunsan on the Korean west coast. In order to either preemptively deny the US military from being able to use these bases against them or in retaliation for their use, China would have a massive wartime incentive to neutralize them. In addition, all of America's military bases located even closer to Taiwan in Okinawa and throughout the rest of Japan. To attempt and prevent this situation from happening, it is reasonable to assume that South Korea may declare neutrality in the conflict and deny the US military permission from utilizing its bases on South Korean territory for offensive purposes against China, in the hope of sparing direct Chinese attacks on South Korean territory. Even if this happens, though, Japan will almost certainly not remain neutral, and America's more strategically important military bases in Japan will most definitely not stay out of the fight, which means that Chinese missiles fired at Japanese and American targets there will still have to fly over South Korean territory or nearby South Korea to strike them, which will still threaten American and South Korean forces there and give American anti-air systems in South Korea an incentive to shoot the Chinese missiles down. Given these circumstances, it is possible that China would encourage North Korea to launch its own attack on South Korea in order to distract and pin down US forces on the peninsula and to keep them out from the more pressing fight over Taiwan. And perhaps even more alarmingly, North Korea would have major incentives to carry out an attack under these circumstances even without direct Chinese encouragement. With the US military in Korea and elsewhere in East Asia enormously distracted by the Chinese attack on Taiwan, a much more nuclear-capable North Korea, armed and supported with Russian technology and diplomacy, might self-calculate that the time was finally right for an opportunistic attack on the South to try and force a military solution to the Korean question.